Hey Instagram, hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in from all over the world. Let me know where in the world you're connecting from in the comments, and welcome to Heal, a online mental health festival helping you heal, right? Helping elevate awareness and learning. That's what this is about. Saturday was World Mental Health Day, and I thought to myself, mental health is something we need to talk about every day because it's something that affects everyone, especially right now. And I wanted to start off with an incredible series of amazing guests, thinkers, musicians, artists, experts who can help you at home right now, in your work, wherever you are, improve your mental health. And I hope that this is going to help you have conversations, interactions, start discussions in your families, in your homes. And I can't wait to start off. I am so grateful to have our first guest, who is none other than the incredible musician, Miguel, who I'm waiting to come online right now. Miguel, if you're here, let me know in the comments so that I see you. And here we go. I think that's you. I hope you're here. I'm looking forward to this.
Found you.
Amazing. Miguel, how's it going?
How are you, Jay?
I'm so good, man. I'm so good. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you, first of all, from the bottom of my heart for doing this, man. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so grateful to spend this time with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure, man. A lot of kind of getting to know more about you through my wife actually has been really inspiring, and just catching sort of your perspective and all of the gems that you kind of, you give the people who follow you, and help. It just really does help with sort of the daily challenges that we all have to deal with. It's really, really cool. So it's really a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Yeah, Naz is amazing. And we got to meet earlier this year before the lockdown. I'm so glad, actually, that
Right.
we
Right.
just meet. And she's incredible. And me and my wife are big fans of your music.
Oh,
So,
God.
so we listen to you all the time. We've been listening to you a ton during lockdown. We listen to you in the car. And so, we're big fans of what you do. And when I saw you open up about mental health
Right.
and start talking about it, I was in awe because, obviously so many people connect and resonate with your musicianship and your incredible talent, but for you to come out and talk about your own challenges, and I know we'll dive into some of those today. But first of all, I just wanted you to know we're both fans as well.
Fine.
I'm really excited, and I'm looking forward to. We have to double date at some point.
Oh, we'd love that. We would love that. We would
Yeah,
love
that would be fun. That would be
it.
fun. But yeah, today's all about the key to this festival, and we made it 7 days
Right.
because I was like, World Mental Health Day. That's not enough time to talk about mental health. Like
Right.
one day, really, like this is so much more beyond that. And you've been kind enough to open our event today. And for the 3,000 people that we have live right now, and the many more that will watch this afterwards, I want to start off by just asking you, how have you been during the last few months? What has been the things that you've turned to? How is this experience been for you?
Man, it has been a and you know, life already has its challenges, and so um when you are used to sort of having to adjust a lot in pursuit of anything that you love, which you and I are blessed to have found for ourselves, and so we kind of understand the ebb and flow of sort of unknowing, not knowing what's going to come, but having a real deep sense of direction because of knowing what we love. Even still, I would say this year has been probably the most challenging in all of the little, it's like when you do things like, you have a regular routine of like workout, let's say, and then you switch your workout out, you switch it up, you start to use different muscles, and you realize all of the things that you really need to reinforce, to strengthen. And I think this year has been a real, it's really revealed some of the things that maybe we could shore up. And for me, it's been, sort of mental fortitude, focus, balance. These things have absolutely been at the forefront. Priorities, those things have been a real, at the top of the brain and have bbeen challenging to sort of, okay, reorganize. But I think it's made us stronger in a lot of ways. So being able to talk about it and still be here, be strong, be able to show up and to still pursue has been, you know, encouraging. It's been encouraging.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that term you used. I've never heard someone say it that way. It's mental fortitude. I think
Mm.
that's powerful. Where did that come from for you? Like, what does that mean for you? And what are you doing daily or weekly that's helping you build that? I think that was really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, mental fortitude. As a, as you know, my purpose really comes from being a sponge and also being able to be vulnerable. I lean into emotion, you know, not only because it's helps me, but because that's sort of what makes me connect with people, and that's how I connect with people. And um, there's a switch there. You have to be able to turn off the sort of emotional, being a sponge of emotion, because when things are happening all around and there's turmoil all around, you kind of have to turn on your what brain is that? Your ability to analyze and
Left.
sort of put things in their place and not spin out of control in your emotions. And so mental fortitude is something that I think it's been a big focus for me. And tools for that have been, simple things, which we all know are, it's like routine, simple routines and self-maintenance, and in self-care, um, and compassion, I think are big ones for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I
How about
love.
you? Are those things you're using in this time too? Because that's sort of it's sort of the you're knowledgeable about this, and you have so much insight. So I'm absolutely curious on what's been like how's it been for you as well?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that for me as well, it's very similar in that I find that in uncertain times, you have to create your own certainty.
Right.
So the only way you do that is through having routine, through having ritual, through having prayer or practice or meditation. Like if you don't have that daily, then you're not going to find certainty from anywhere around you. And then the other part of it that's been really interesting to me, and you said this at the beginning, I've been fortunate enough at this time to be happy and healthy and safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I find certainty and uncertainty is through service. So
Mm-hmm.
because I'm healthy and safe, I'm going to myself, well, what can I do to help someone else who may not be healthy and safe or who may have a bigger difficulty right now? So even this conversation that we're getting to have, and I'm looking at the comments and I'm seeing people that are like, thank you for saying that. I needed to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
I really need to have someone to open up around. And so for me, I'm always thinking, how can I extend myself to others? Because that always feels a sense of certainty too, in that, okay, I'm a part of the solution. I'm trying to help.
Right.
Uh, I think when we feel connected to that's a phenomenal feeling.
Yeah, that sort of figuring out how to be of service is as an interesting one for it's an interesting way to switch it's it's about me or how I'm feeling vibe, and it does completely change how you integrate with the reality or whatever's happening in this moment, because it's empowering. It's empowering. You're saying I can help, and then you put the action behind it. That's actually been a really good tool. And even again, like just having the conversation alone, it is really dope to see people just be responsive and say, hey, I appreciate it. It's really empowering. So that makes a lot of sense.
I love that, man. When was it that you first started to, because I know I've read about your meditation practices before, I've read about your journey with mental health. When was it where you started to feel like you needed to talk to someone? What was it about your own journey? Tell us a bit about that with mental health, where you started to not want to talk about it externally, but you realized that you wanted to focus on it internally. And what was it that triggered that?
Ooh, it was around maybe 6 years ago. I was working on an album, and I could feel myself spiraling and kind of going deeper into a less, just spiraling. Like my emotions in the pursuit of the music, I was kind of following them too deep, and that would be positive and negative. And those sort of things, that those habits started to kind of converge until they hit a tipping point, and my family had to sit me down and go, hey, like, we're not really sure who you are right now. You know, it varies so drastically. Sometimes you're who we know, and other times you're a different person. And I had to reconcile with that and realize that there was some changes that need to be made. And luckily I did, I had a family and a support system that was like not going to let me just do it, which is a blessing in and of itself, massive blessing. And so I started seeing a therapist and sort of dealing with the internal dialogue. And I realized that we all have this chatter going on, and we're sort of either paying attention to, some of it's great and some of it is not great, and a lot of it is not even us. It's sort of reinforced mental habits that we pick up along the way, and we just strap on our backs, and we're just like, okay, I'm gonna carry this, and it's a part of me. And at some point, with the right support system, you get a chance to take a look at that and go, hey, is this me? Is this really me talking? Or is this like, my community or my experiences talking to me? Some of my family members and their experiences that they're passing on to me, really speaking. And once I started to realize that I could do that, I realized how much of it lends itself to my success and my belief in myself. And then also the things that maybe have kept me from reaching beyond, my own perceived limitations. And since then, it's been a journey on sort of like picking and choosing and curating, what thoughts are mine and which ones I'm just gonna go, okay, I see you. Great. I hear you, but like maybe take a seat. That's like, that's young version, or maybe not it's not the updated version of the operating system. You know what I mean? Like, I know what that was. Okay, cool. So that's where it began for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, man, because hearing you say that, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening are like, yes, I feel that. Like, I can see a lot of yeses in the comments, and like, even I'm, yes, I felt that. I know what that feels like. I can connect with that. And I think half the time, because all of us are having those conversations in our head, people aren't even aware, and we think that someone else has it perfect,
Right.
or we think that someone else doesn't have that thought. And one of the things I was going to ask you, because I found this in my community, and I'd love to hear about, because you said your family was supportive,
Mm.
but you talked about your community. Like, I know in the South Asian community that I'm from, and I'm born and raised in London, but the wider community,
Right.
talking about mental health is not normal. So in the South Asian community, especially as a South Asian man,
Mm.
no one's going to ever say, or rarely are people going to say that I'm struggling with mental health, because it would be seen as a weakness, or
Right.
it'd be as a sign of like a lack of your manlyhood.
Right.
How was that in your community, and how did you feel? Like, your family was obviously so supportive, but where was that for you, if you don't mind sharing?
That it's such an interesting thing. I think we're in a point in history where we actually can take our minds off of, in different ways. It's not just about survival. And I think historically, just in human history, I don't think this is like specific to any place or culture, but survival was at the top of everyone's brains. How are we going to survive? How are we going to make it to the next day? And just by human culture evolving, we have a little bit more free time, and also this connectivity that we have to see how other people are doing it, living, and surviving and thriving, and maybe not thriving or struggling. We're able to sort of gauge, like, the possibilities. So our our minds are starting to shift culturally as a human culture, and we have the bandwidth to consider, what does living what does thriving really mean for me? And we're able to actually take our minds off of just surviving, which I can relate to. You know, from where I come from, it was about survival. I don't come from a, from a family who is, wealthy or anything like that. And so as I've gotten older, um, and again, being able to be in this place in my journey, I can say, okay, I have this bandwidth now. What is all of this for? And it is sort of, it's a challenge. I think a lot of cultures are starting to see this conversation be a part of it. It's a human culture thing now, because we're starting to realize, like, ooh, our work to survive is starting to come at the cost of the planet, of each other, of really being connected, quality of life, and these sorts of things. So the more we can take a look inward, which I'm finding, the more we behave, we choose things that are less about survival and more about purpose and more about fulfillment. And it is sort of a weird thing. I think we're just going through like weird growing pains in like humanity, where all of these different cultures and communities are starting to go, oh wait, we're sort of dealing with like past experiences. How do we do it better?
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is having these mental health conversations, which are not easy.
No, not at all. I loved what you shared about history there, because it's almost like survival's like fear-based, right?
Mm,
Survival is all fear-based.
right.
And if you're coming from a place of fear, that can be really de-energizing,
Mm,
right? Like if anyone who's listening or watching back at home right now, and I'm sure, Miguel, you've experienced this, like when you're living from a place of fear,
mm,
in a relationship, in a job, in a professional relationship, whatever it may be, that like completely ruins the energy of this space. Whereas when you're coming, what you said, like from purpose, that's coming from a place of love.
mm-hmm,
With service, that's coming from a place of love.
mm-hmm,
And these are real frequencies, like these are real vibrational energies. Like if you're coming from a place of fear, it's very hard to create anything beautiful or powerful in your life. And it's so interesting that survival, which is how we're all wired,
mm-hmm.
is from a place of fear. And that's the point, that this isn't about you being a good or a bad person, or you being a fearful person. We're all trying to unwire the coil that has been there, as Miguel was saying, for history, for decades and thousands of years. And so we're all having to unwire that, right? Like it's a collective thing.
Feels like it. It feels like it. Has it been a awkward transition? Because my understanding is that this wasn't always a focus for you. What was your transition into realizing, like, hey, like I can choose, like I can curate this, like, mental, dialogue. Like, was that hard for you as well?
Yeah, so Miguel, I got really fortunate because I met monks when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're 18 years old, I wasn't thinking about any of this, right? Like this wasn't even, I was just enjoying life, being an 18-year-old, growing up in London.
Right.
It took me a while. I was bullied when I was young for being overweight and a ton of others. And I was the only Indian in my school and that kind of stuff till about the age of 14. And then after 15, 16, I kind of like started getting into my better years. And so by 18, it was like life was really good.
Right.
And I'd had my fair share of personal challenges, but overall things were good. But when I met the monks, it was really fascinating for me because I realized when I was 18, I'd met people who were rich, I'd met people who were famous, I'd met people who were beautiful and attractive, and I'd met people who were athletic and smart, but I don't think I'd met anyone who was truly happy.
Mm-hmm.
Monks were happy, like they had joy in their hearts and their minds, and they introduced me to all these practices when I was 18. And so then I went off and lived as a monk for 3 years, and I lived in India and across Europe as a monk. And for me, that's where my mind just got opened up to all of these practices. And I was just like, why wasn't I taught this in school? Like, how is this not available to everyone? So
Right.
definitely for me, I mean, I grew up, like I said, born and raised in London, all the habits that you'd expect,
Right.
but life just got shifted because I met people of higher vibration and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I value almost introducing people, even people hearing from you today. By the way, your vibe is so, like, even today, just talking to you, I feel so much stillness through the screen, just your presence, and that's you. And so when people get to experience that, they go, oh, that's real. Like, I can feel that. Like, that's real. And I think that's what I felt when I met the monks. I was like, oh, there's a whole nother plane here that I know nothing about. Like, there is a whole nother level here to life, because I just thought life was go to college, get a good degree, get a good job, marry someone. Like that, you know, what I was on.
Right.
And totally derailed that plan.
Right.
I'm married and, you know, and then doing those things. But they gave me the tools that I was desperately seeking. So I hope that answers your question. That was a long answer.
Totally. No, that's it's a trippy thing, because that's sort of like what we're again. I mean, my father is an immigrant from, you know, Mexico. My mother is a black woman. Both of them experienced a very different kind of reality, and like what was the goal in life.
Yes.
I really do believe like it's sort of a weird baton pass. Like when you have, you know, every generation, our family's generation it's an interesting baton pass where they're trying to do better for their family. And so, you know, I'm sure at some point in your family's lineage, they left or were brought, or however they got to London. They worked hard to make a better life for you, and same thing for me, and probably same thing for a lot of the people who are here. And you know, now that they had you, raised you, they did as good as they could, and now we're here in this whatever part of the whole, you know, whatever this is. And we're trying to do it better for our next generation, for our lineage. And I think we're starting to face now less of the survival again part of it. And we're realizing, like you said, there is a whole other plane. We're realizing that it's like when you get around people, and I really appreciate the, you know, you saying about the stillness. It means a lot, man, because you obviously, you know, you have that same thing, and we work really hard for that. You know, we really do, because it's no longer about just making sure that we can provide for our families, that we can do this. And it's a blessing to be able to say that we can do that, but realizing that the real quality of life doesn't come from establishing those things. It's sort of like the underlying, you know, whatever piece that you have that makes it like, oh no, like I can actually connect with whatever's happening right now and be all the way here and be like, I'm good, and be if that's like, I don't always have that, you know. It's like I still do my, like, some days my energy is off, and I know that, and I'm working on that, you know. It's a daily fucking struggle, excuse me. But you know, when you know that you can get there, that in and of itself, just realizing it is like a big thing. At 18, that must have been so sick, man, because you're still placid, like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, I was so malleable.
Yeah.
You could do it at 18. And yeah, that's why I just consider myself lucky. And that's why I want to open up conversations like this to younger and younger and younger people. And by the way, everyone's young in the sense of, even if someone comes to this at 60 or 50 or whatever, it's like, it's never too late, or there's not like a timeline on it. And so, but I love what you're saying about parents, because I often think like, no one ever stopped and asked my parents, how's your mental health?
Man.
Right? Like, no one ever stopped and asked our parents, like, are you working too hard? Do you need to take a break? Do you need to have a self-care day or a self-day? Like, my parents just work to provide what you're saying, survival.
Right.
So, you know, I love what you're saying there, because instead of feeling bitterness towards our parents or whatever it may be, we can actually come and ask them for once, hey, mom, dad, do you need some help with your mental health? Because they've never been asked that before, and we can break the cycle. Like what you were saying, as we pass it on to future generations, we can actually break that cycle of humanity just thinking about survival versus thinking about living from a place of deeper well-being. So I love that messaging, because I think often we can get really bitter or resentful towards people who may not have helped us, but actually they were never helped themselves.
So that's actually a great, man. I love that you said that, because, I think anyone that's here probably has some interest in has a general interest in the conversation, and must be looking for it, digging for it, working at it themselves. And part of realizing that, we can choose our thoughts, we can really, control and be thoughtful about, okay, is this me or is this my mind?
Yeah.
Make that separation, because the mind is built to program. It's like, it's to compute, to make, help with that. But then, like, we start to realize through this journey that there's a whole self behind that. There's like a purpose. That's the gut. That's the spirit. Whatever we're connected to, the bigger thing. And you start to have compassion for yourself. Then you start to look at where everything comes from, and that inevitably takes you to your parents or your role models. And having that conversation, like, how do you? Because in my journey, I've had these conversations with my parents, and sometimes the older generations are less open to, and I would love to get like any tips or anything like that, because I think anyone watching would also probably say they would at some point have or will have these,
Yeah.
want to have these conversations with whoever their role models raise
Yeah.
them. Are there any things you found helpful? Because that's
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. And it's always one thing I always remember is that it's always hard to inspire and influence us, those that are closest to us, like always. And, and the biggest reason we have to realize is sometimes we have to get out of the way of their growth.
mm-hmm.
So the challenge is that when we get a sense of growth, we think we have to get everyone around us to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's about finding and asking the question, who does that person need to meet? What,
Mm-hmm.
what experience does that person need to have? What experience have they not had yet?
Mm-hmm.
Going to help them naturally come out of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't force it out of someone, and you can't make someone feel awkward and uncomfortable. Like, none of us would do that. And ask yourself, what was the experience you had? Maybe you listened to a song, maybe you had an interview like this, maybe you read a book, maybe you went and did a meditation. Like, what did you have?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that someone else may open up to something completely different. It may not be the same thing you opened up to. And as someone, if it's someone you love, you have to ask yourself, what is it going to take for them? Like, what experience do they need? And
Mm-hmm.
if you deeply think about that and reflect on it, then you'll find what it is. And then you're introducing them to that. So I meet a lot of parents sometimes, and a lot of parents say to me, like, oh, my kids don't listen to me, but they watch your stuff or whatever. Like, can you talk to them? And I'm like, well, none of you introduced me, because they're not going to listen. And so it's just interesting where you just gotta, I feel like you have to really get close to that person and understand them. But Miguel, I mean, you've been very generous with your time, and I want to end with one question. And actually, this is what I've realized from this conversation. You need to come on the podcast, and we need to talk for like an hour and a half, because
I love that.
this is not long enough. Like, this
Yeah.
is way too short. But because I've loved this, like, sharing energy with you and vibration with you has been really special. And I feel a synergy, which is really special. But I want to end with this question. What is your message to people for their mental health in 2020? What would you say to them? Everyone watching right now, everyone who's going to watch this afterwards, hear this afterwards, what would you say is your takeaway message for everyone?
I would say everyone is dealing with a lot. If you can have a little bit of patience, if you can make time for yourself, and just consider that no one has all the answers, and just be compassionate, make time for yourself, and breathe through everything. We absolutely have the fortitude within us to be our best, even in the worst. It's not easy. I deal with it every day, and I understand that everyone's got their own struggle. But I will say that it is possible. I know it's possible. And I get to talk to people like Jay. I get to talk to you. I get to talk to, you know, some of my friends who are also creatives, and professionals and whatever, and family members, and use those support systems. You know, reach out. Hopefully you're okay. If you're not, talk to somebody. It can be okay. Every day is a struggle, but we're all here. We're all trying to do it, and it is possible. And love you. Love you. Yeah.
I love that. That is beautiful. Everyone, if you don't already follow Miguel, from anyone who's tuning in from my side, please go and follow Miguel and listen to his incredible music. That's definitely going to help you heal. And what we're doing is healing, helping elevate awareness and learning. That's what we want to do this week. Miguel's helped us with raising awareness about mental health through his music, through his work, through his life, and learning. We're sharing insights and ideas that can just help us a little bit. And I hope that you'll tune in every single day. Miguel, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, but we need to make this conversation much longer. And I can't wait to sit down with you. So I'll reach out to you and we'll set something up.
I look forward to it, my friend. Take care, everyone.
My love to Nas. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you so much.
Take care, Jay, man.
Yeah, take care, Miguel. Thank you.
All right, brother.